Hey, I'm Jordan Miola, and this is how to write a TV sitcom. Let's jump in. First, there's two different kinds of sitcoms, multicams and single cams.
Voila!
Holy good God.
Multicam sitcoms are shows that usually have a laugh track. Shows like Friends, I Love Lucy, The Big Bang Theory, The Jeffersons, all those shows that have an audience, those are multicams. Shows that don't have those are usually single cams. Shows like The Office, Arrested Development, Veep, 30 Rock, Parks and Recreation. All those are single cam sitcoms. And there is no live audience. With multicams, you tend to stay with the same sets always. But in single cams, you can move around a lot more and there's more flexibility. Locations have to be. The scripts also look different. Single cam pilots and dramas usually tend to be written in single space. But multicam pilots are usually double spaced within their dialogue. Now, let's talk about the difference between speccing a show and writing a TV pilot. I've written spec scripts for The Goldbergs, Broad City, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, AP Bio, 30 Rock, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and Parks and Recreation. When you find a show you want to spec, watch every single episode of the show. Not only will this help you know the voices of the characters and tone of the show, you'll know what storylines have been done before. Writing a spec script can be so much fun because you deep dive into the characters and you get to know the show in and out. You not only become a fan, you become obsessed with it. When I wrote my 30 Rock spec, I printed out Wikipedia pages of all the characters and highlighted certain things that could be part of my spec script. You want to learn everything about the show in and out. Brainstorm storyline ideas as you watch the show. You want to brainstorm a bunch of storylines for each character so you can pick and choose later. Also, when you watch the show, take notes. Look for things that no one else is thinking about. As you study the show, you'll begin to see the show differently. Also, take note of how many storylines they have, because in your script, you want to have the same amount of storylines that they do. When I wrote my 30 Rock spec, I noticed there were 3 or 4 storylines for each episode. Sometimes characters like Jenna and Tracy would team up together, but Liz usually always had the A story. And you want to figure out your A story, B story, C story, etc. Know the characters.
You even wrap the dirty dishes?
Yeah, I didn't feel like doing them, and now you can't even tell if they're dirty.
You might have a good sense of them already if you watch the show a lot that you're speccing. You really want to master their voice and hear how they talk, even when you're sleeping at night. Let those characters haunt you in your dreams, because you'll think of some really good ideas that way. When I wrote my 30 Rock episode, I got obsessed with 30 Rock for a month as I wrote my script. Nobody knew more about 30 Rock than I did when I wrote that script. As you watch the show, write down quirks and little things that characters say that may spark an idea for you. So for example, in 30 Rock, I took note that Tracy Jordan talked about his kid named George Foreman. And after I learned that, I wrote an idea that eventually became my Tracy Jordan storyline. My storyline is Tracy refuses permission to let his son George Foreman take a sex ed class. Instead, Tracy makes an educational film teaching kids about the birds, the bees, and how to get it on. When I wrote a Broad City episode, I watched every episode of Broad City 3 times. If you like this lesson, you can find it in even more detail inside the Screenwriting Success Club, along with a full classroom on filmmaking, writing movies, comedy, and more. If you're serious about writing more, come join us. Links in the description. Now, let's talk about writing a TV pilot. When you write a TV pilot, you need to come up with a logline. A logline is a very short synopsis of your idea that you can easily pitch to cast, crew, managers, producers, whoever. Make your logline 30 words or less. If you want a better idea of a logline, use IMDb and look for the short synopsis that's written for every show and movie. You want a logline that grabs people's attention and it's quick and catchy. The logline for my series, Monster Therapy, is monsters and their spouses work on relationship issues and marriage therapy. This is exactly what I said to people as I pitched it to them. I would then give examples, like how Jason's wife wants to replace his old ratty hockey mask.
I would like my husband to replace his old, dirty, ratty hockey mask.
I've had this mask since 1982. It's my trademark!
Don't even like hockey.
I like hockey.
Name one hockey player. Exactly.
After you have a logline and a concept, think about what could happen in the series. It could be cool moments, story arcs, a joke, whatever keeps your brain thinking about it more and more and wanting to write more ideas down. And write them down as you go. Often as you look back at those ideas, you'll think about even more ideas to add. And when you pitch the series, You want to give examples of what could happen in other episodes. So think of several ideas for several episodes. Have a blue sky period. When you start brainstorming your idea and possibilities of your story, there are no bad ideas. The Office called this the blue sky period, where in the first 2 weeks of the writing room, all ideas were welcome. It didn't matter if they made sense or didn't make sense. I mean, who burns their foot on a George Foreman grill? Michael Scott does. And it probably came from that blue sky period. When you first start writing, there are no stupid ideas. Let any idea go anywhere and everywhere you want to. After you have a main character, it often helps to think of dozens of storylines for that character, and then choose one of those storylines for your pilot. You want to have 30 or 40 storylines to choose from. Then you can start writing. And those 30 or 40 storylines can be terrible. Sometimes a terrible idea sparks another idea that's actually really good. When you first start brainstorming storylines, don't judge yourself. And don't judge your writing too hard. Just try to have fun. You want to brainstorm a bunch of storylines for each character so you can pick and choose later. And you want to figure out your A story, B story, C story, etc. The A story is usually the most important and is given to the main character. If you watch Frasier, the most significant story of every episode, the A story, goes to Frasier. Most of the A stories in The Office are about Michael. Also take note, as the letters get closer to Z, the less important the story is. Your A story is the story that drives everything else, and you should put the most time towards the A story. Most comedies have an A story, B story, C story, but not all of them. Phil Rosenthal, the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond, points out in his book, You're Lucky You're Funny, that episodes of Raymond usually only had an A story, and every member of the family is involved in that story. Phil felt that B stories weren't needed in half-hour sitcoms, and you only need a strong A story. Most sitcoms tend to have a B story and a C story at least. They might also have a D story or E story for supporting characters. Let's talk about TV structure. Know how many acts the show has. Every TV show is broken down into different parts, which are called acts. Each act is about 9 to 15 pages long. The best way to think about this is acts take place between the commercials. For network TV, every time there's an act break, there's a commercial. For streaming services,
All we do is Peacock and chill.
You mean Netflix and chill?
Oh, no, he only has Peacock.
you may not have commercials, but you'll usually notice the show will fade out and then fade into a new scene that starts a different act. Comedies tend to be 2 or 3 acts, but there's some comedies now with 4 acts. Traditional sitcoms like Sanford & Son, All in the Family, and I Love Lucy usually only had 2 acts. But as TV changes, so do structure of shows. This is why it's important to know your show and the amount of acts. Here's the structure of an episode of 30 Rock if you were watching it on NBC. Besides acts, most shows start with a cold open. This is the first scene that grabs the attention of the audience, something that hooks us in. The Office was known for amazing cold opens. Like that time, Dwight made everyone believe there was a fire in the office, just so he could see how people would react. At the end of every act, there's usually some kind of cliffhanger to make the audience stick around. And if it's network TV, there'll be a commercial break as well. After in Act 1, a network show would have a commercial and then go into Act 2. And then after Act 2, another commercial, which would go into Act 3, and so forth and so on. Lastly, many shows will end with a tag. Like the cold open, this is usually a short scene, and it helps wrap up a small storyline, or it gives us one more laugh. If you want to learn how to properly format your script, take my course and check out the example PDFs of script examples I provide in the course. Again, the link is in the video description. Your storylines will weave and be touched upon in each act. You want to have a strong A storyline for your main character in the pilot. And this storyline should also be a good, strong introduction for your audience. Your storyline and your series idea has to grab our attention. But make sure the first 10 pages of your pilot episode are amazing. Your concept too. You want to make sure you keep the reader hooked. You want to have the show that has everyone talking about it right away. Make sure you have some big laughs and make them often. You also want to have memorable characters too. But think about it like this. Your script has to be so good that a producer reads it and shares it with everyone in their office. You want people to talk about it. That's how you get meetings and get through the door. By being so good that whoever reads your script talks about it and they want to see it get made. To learn more on how to write your TV show, pitch your TV show, and a lot more, check out my TV writing course inside the Screenwriting Success Club. We also run guided challenges, so you're actually writing with a community of writers just like you. Come join us. Links in the description. I'll see you there.